Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
It begins where the eye forgets to look, beneath the roughened skin of trees where bark weathers silently and breath moves slowly in the dark. You might imagine forests as still, rooted in hush, but within their trunks flows a slow rhythm of life. There, deep in the cambium layers, sap drifts like memory, carrying messages from root to crown, and all the while the tree inhales. Each tree holds a pulse, not one of muscle or blood, but of moisture and movement. It begins when roots taste the cool water beneath the soil, drawing it upward with invisible strength. The water rises not in a rush, but in a delicate, climbing whisper. Capillary action and cohesion, those quiet dancers of physics, help the fluid reach toward the sun. It is not unlike a breath, though slower, quieter, stretched across hours and days. Inside this hidden breathing, the tree listens to light. The leaves above gather sunshine and carbon dioxide, spinning them gently into sugars. Those sugars, like softened whispers, travel back down the phloem, the tree's inner highway, feeding the wood, the buds, the roots. This constant back and forth is the breath beneath the bark, an exhale of sweetness and an inhale of water and air. No lungs, no voice, yet the rhythm is true. Sometimes in the stillness of an early morning forest, when dew clings to needles and leaves, you can almost sense it. That hush isn't emptiness. It's the sound of everything breathing slowly together. The fungi in the soil, the moss curling on trunks, the insects tunneling through the wood, they all move with this quiet tide. And the tree stands in the center, a living archive of rain and sun. Scientists have placed tiny instruments, acoustic sensors, against the trunks of trees, and they've heard it too. Clicks, pops, vibration, not random but patterned like distant drumbeats. Some sounds come from the cavitation of water, when a bubble forms in the xylem and collapses. Others may come from cells expanding, from bark adjusting to the weight of new branches, or from tension releasing as the tree stretches ever upward. It is not silence but soft mechanics, nature's inner metronome. And just as animals breathe faster when excited, trees too change their rhythm. In drought, their breath stutters. The water becomes harder to pull and the cavitations grow. During floods, the roots may soften their grip, drinking less, and the tree slows down. In spring, when light returns in full, the breath becomes deep and steady again. The tree is always adjusting, always responding, not with thought but with a kind of wisdom woven into its chemistry. There is even a scent to this breathing. When leaves are broken, they release green volatiles, molecules that carry warning, that speak to nearby plants. Some trees, when wounded, send these signals ahead of the damage. Others listen and prepare, closing pores, thickening bark, shifting their internal flow. These aren't thoughts, but they are decisions of survival, etched in molecules and motion. The forest listens to itself. And in all this listening, the bark becomes more than just a shell. It's a porous guardian, layered with corky cells and memory. It holds the marks of storms, of time, of the creatures that have climbed and carved into it. Beneath lies the phloem and cambium, the places of living change. There, in microscopic bridges, messages are carried. The bark breathes too, not by gasping but by releasing subtle emissions, terpenes, oils, signals in the wind. You can almost imagine a forest as one single breathing body, each tree a lung, each root a sensor pressed against the skin of the earth. As the wind moves through the canopy, it doesn't only stir leaves, it whispers through them, altering the internal rhythm of the tree. The breeze is not just movement, it is conversation. And so, the breath beneath the bark is never alone. It is echoed in every lichen-covered branch, every squirrel-scratched trunk, every spore drifting through shafts of light. The tree is part of a system that breathes across seasons, across decades, across lives. A slow, unseen respiration that speaks without sound and listens without ears. To lie beneath a tree is to rest beside this breath. To touch its bark is to press your palm against the warm hum of stillness. And to know this is to remember that even in stillness, life moves, not with noise, but with rhythm. Let's drift deeper now, beneath the bark's quiet breath and into the loam-rich whispers of the roots. Down here, in the dim-lit architecture of soil and memory, the tree reaches out, not just to gather water, but to touch the world around it. These roots do not simply anchor. They explore. They listen. They remember. As they extend through the darkness, they press against stones, curve around fungi, and twine with the tendrils of neighbors in a silent entanglement that science is only beginning to understand. Each tip of every root pulses with possibility. Wrapped in microscopic hairs, these ends sip minerals and moisture with a delicacy that rivals any laboratory instrument. But more than that, they engage in conversation. Root to fungus, root to microbe. They release sugars, oils, acids, chemical messages that shape the soil around them. In turn, the soil responds, sending nutrients, allies, and sometimes warnings. This is the underground internet of the forest, where information travels in flavor and scent, not in words. Mycorrhizal fungi weave themselves into these roots like careful threads through fabric. They grow in long, gossamer filaments, hyphae, that extend farther than any root could on its own. Through them the tree sees more, feels more, knows more. The fungi carry minerals, phosphorus, nitrogen, magnesium, from distant pockets of earth to the tree. In return, the tree feeds them sugars from its light-spun stores. This ancient pact, struck over 400 million years ago, still thrives below our feet. And within it, a quiet kind of intelligence hums. Sometimes these fungal pathways connect tree to tree. An older mother tree may pass nutrients to her saplings through this living lacework. If one tree is sick, its neighbors may share carbon to help it heal. If a pest approaches, a warning signal may ripple outwards, allowing others to prepare their defenses. It is not telepathy, but it is something astonishingly close, a biological empathy embedded in the forest floor. And in all this, water flows. Not as a flood, not as a rush, but in trickles and threads, carried along pressure gradients and osmotic pulls. The roots guide this water gently toward the trunk, and upward it travels again, pulled by the tug of leaves high above. When the sun warms the canopy, stomata open like tiny mouths, releasing water vapor in a sigh called transpiration. This loss creates a pull so fine, it lifts columns of water through vessels thinner than hair. And all of it begins with roots that feel the deep cool of earth. There is rhythm in this rising and falling. As day passes into night, the tree slows its flow. The pores in the leaves close. The demand for water eases. The internal pressure shifts. Some researchers suggest this causes the tree to slightly contract and expand, almost like breathing, almost like sleep. It is a nocturnal stillness, a pulse made from water, gravity, and light. It reminds us that even the seemingly unmoving hold within them a softness of time. When the forest is wet with rain, roots respond not only with drinking but with restraint. Too much water can suffocate the fine hairs, so the tree releases hormones that slow growth, that firm up cells, that hold back until the earth dries again. It is a constant tuning, each root tip a sensing fingertip pressed against the breath of the world. Some roots grow deeper to seek stability. Others branch out wide to gather shallow dew. And still beneath the surface, they touch one another with subtle vibrations. Yes, vibrations. That quiet hum that began above with cavitating xylem continues below. Roots emit sounds, tiny clicks, ultrasonic pulses that seem meaningless to us but perhaps are filled with language to those who live down there. In laboratory studies, roots have shown a preference for growing toward certain tones. It suggests, gently and curiously, that they may listen, that they may hum back, that somewhere in the soil there is a music of growing things. And so the breath beneath the bark is not just a column of rising sap, it is a whole ecology of movement and exchange. It is the forest's answer to wind and drought, to companionship and danger. The tree does not stand alone. Beneath its trunk is a memory bank of every season it has survived, every storm that bent it, every insect that touched its skin. Those experiences are etched not in neurons but in chemistry, in rings, in the branching shapes of new roots. It is a memory written in form. What's most remarkable is how much of this happens in darkness. We think of knowledge as something revealed in light, but in forests, truth often lives where light never reaches. In cool, silent chambers of dirt and decay, where old leaves return to the soil and fuel the life of new growth. Down there, the tree learns without eyes. It remembers through feel and flow, and somehow, without moving, it becomes aware of its place. Scientists now speak of plant cognition, of decision-making without brains, of problem-solving through growth patterns and hormonal cues. They study how a root chooses one path over another, how a leaf will curl to avoid a shadow, how a tree remembers a drought and changes how it grows in the years after. These are not thoughts as we understand them, but they are actions shaped by memory. And in their slowness, they become a kind of wisdom. So the breath beneath the bark is more than biological, it is experiential. A map of every nutrient absorbed, every signal shared, every sound heard, every gesture returned. It is the tree's autobiography, whispered through the pulsing roots, stored in the rings of wood, and exhaled in the invisible scents that ride the breeze. You can't hear it, but you can feel it in your chest when you lie among the leaves. You can feel the stillness pressing gently against your ribs, matching your breath. This is not a forest filled with silence. It is a forest filled with softness. And softness is not the absence of strength, it is the presence of harmony. Everything in this breathing system bends without breaking, adapts without panic, and remembers without noise. The tree, through its breath, teaches us how to live quietly, deeply, and connected. And so, in the hush of soil and root, the breath continues. Not urgent, not loud, just there beneath the bark, beneath the hum of leaves and the dream of rain, waiting to be noticed. Now imagine the forest in deep twilight, when the sun has slipped behind the hills and the trees stand bathed in a bluish hush. It is during this hour, between the waking and the resting, that the breath beneath the bark becomes most tender. The warmth of the day still lingers in the trunk, while the roots begin to cool with the earth. And inside the wood, the last light touches the sugars made hours ago, setting them on their slow journey downward. The forest exhales softly, its rhythms winding down. Within each tree, layers of history are being quietly recorded. Not in books, not in photographs, but in rings, concentric echoes of every season. A wide ring might tell of wet summers, of long days and generous rains. A narrow one whispers of drought. Some bear the scars of fire, a silent blackened memory sealed in wood. But all of them together, these circles of time, form a kind of diary kept beneath the bark, one that never speaks aloud but always remembers. The tree lives in the long now. It does not rush, it does not forget. And within this patience a wisdom grows, one not born of intellect but of enduring presence. The breath beneath the bark is part of this wisdom. Every drop of water drawn, every sugar shared, every scent released into the wind, these are choices made in stillness. Not in the flicker of thought, but in the gentle unfolding of years. In autumn, when chlorophyll drains from the leaves and reds and golds rise in its place, the tree begins a quiet retreat. Its breath slows, transpiration eases, the sugars thicken and shift, preparing to overwinter in the roots. Some trees release ethylene, a chemical signal that helps leaves fall gracefully to the ground, where they will become part of the soil once more. This is not death, it is transformation, a slow turning inward. The breath does not stop, it simply curls inward like sleep. Even in winter, when the branches are bare and snow balances along the limbs like feathers, the tree continues to breathe. Not through leaves, but through the bark, through lenticels, tiny pores that allow oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. Beneath the frozen soil, roots rest but remain alert, adjusting their chemistry to the cold. The tree waits, not impatiently, but with the calm of something that knows the seasons will return. Its breath is quieter, yes, but never gone. And when spring returns, it does not arrive all at once. First comes the warming of the ground, coaxing roots awake. Then sap begins to flow again, slowly at first, then with more urgency as buds swell. The tree's breath becomes fuller, its limbs stretching toward longer days. Leaves unfurl like green sighs. The cycle begins again. But it is not repetition, it is memory, folding back upon itself like petals returning to bloom. What science has uncovered in recent years is how intimately the tree responds to its world. Not just water and light, but sound, pressure, touch. When a caterpillar begins to eat its leaves, the tree can detect the vibration and respond with chemical defenses. When branches are touched or bent, the internal architecture subtly shifts, strengthening the wood in just the right places. The tree is listening all the time with its skin, its roots, its sap. In this listening, there is something deeply poetic. It suggests that life does not always need to be fast to be aware. That knowledge can grow in silence. That understanding can take the form of persistence. And perhaps most humbling of all, that breath need not be loud to matter. We humans often measure life in heartbeats and thoughts, in movement and noise, but the tree teaches another way, one of slow intention, of responding to the moment but also to the years. Its breath stretches across centuries, held in every fiber of its being. Some trees alive today began their breathing before the first books were written. They have witnessed empires rise and fall, and through it all their breath remained steady. Stand beside one of these elders, an oak, a redwood, a beech, and rest your hand against its bark. You may feel nothing at first, but linger. Breathe with it. Let your own breath slow to match its ancient rhythm. In time, the quiet might reveal itself, not in words but in presence, in the soft awareness that something vast and calm is sharing space with you. This is the breath beneath the bark, a rhythm of rising sap and falling leaves, of sharing sugar and listening roots, of vibration and silence, of endurance and softness. It is not an idea, it is a being. It moves without rush. It waits without worry. And in doing so, it teaches us that life, real, enduring life, does not need to shout. It is always there, beneath the hum of the leaves, beneath the sigh of the wind, beneath your own heartbeat if you slow down enough to hear it. The forest does not sleep in the way we do, but it rests, it drifts, it breathes, and in that breath it holds a kind of peace that can settle inside you too. So next time you walk among trees, listen not with ears but with stillness. Know that each trunk holds a breath centuries long. Know that the bark hides not just strength but song. And know that even when nothing seems to stir, the world is humming with life you cannot see, but can always feel. Somewhere between sunlight and silence, a leaf begins to sing, not with notes you can hear, but with pigments that pulse with purpose. This song is not written in ink or breath, but in chlorophyll, a green thread that stitches the sky to the earth. Every leaf, from the trembling birch to the glossy fig, carries within it a small, soft engine. And inside that engine, sunlight is turned into sweetness. Imagine the morning. Light slips between branches, touching the uppermost leaves first, warming them gently awake. As the photons land, they are caught by chlorophyll molecules waiting in stillness. In that moment, energy leaps, a spark, a transfer, a delicate combustion without flame. The chlorophyll, shaped like a tiny open ring with a single magnesium heart, absorbs blue and red light, letting green bounce back into the world. That green is not just color, it is a signature. It is the breath of light transformed into nourishment. Photosynthesis, a word heavy with science, yet it unfolds like poetry. Sunlight plus carbon dioxide plus water. From these, the leaf makes sugar and oxygen, but it does not do so noisily. It happens in the layered cells of the mesophyll, within tiny chloroplasts that move like stars across the watery sky of cytoplasm. These chloroplasts hold the story, grana, stroma, membranes arranged like folded paper, all working together in astonishing coordination. Every second, billions of light reactions spark across the surface of leaves, and every second, plants hum their part in Earth's great lullaby. As the light reactions dance, water is split, electrons are freed, and oxygen slips quietly out into the air. You inhale that gift with no effort at all. And as you do, the leaf continues its song, channeling the liberated electrons through a careful path, building the foundations of sugar. This sugar, this glucose, is not just fuel. It is memory. It is the record of that moment of light, stored to be shared with the rest of the plant, carried in silent rivers down the phloem. And while all this unfolds invisibly, the leaf also listens. It adjusts its pores, called stomata, based on humidity, light intensity, temperature, and even the breath of nearby plants. These pores are small mouths, opening and closing throughout the day. In the morning, they open wide, inviting carbon dioxide and like guests. In the afternoon, when the heat becomes sharp, they tighten slightly, conserving water. At night, most close but not all, and in the dark, the song slows to a whisper. What we call green is only part of the story. Hidden beneath the chlorophyll are other pigments, carotenoids in gold and orange, anthocyanins in reds and purples. These pigments lie dormant for much of the year, quietly participating in the chemistry of light but letting green take the stage. In autumn, when chlorophyll fades away, these hidden voices rise. The forest bursts into color, not as a death, but as a chorus finally allowed to sing alone. Even now, researchers are learning how nuanced this song is. Some leaves adjust their pigment composition to different light conditions, more chlorophyll in the shade, more carotenoids in the sun. Others change how they arrange their chloroplasts in response to stress, bending the light within their cells like a subtle lens. The leaf is not passive. It responds. It tunes itself. It remembers. The sugar created does not remain in the leaf. It flows, first in small pools within the cells, then into the veins that crisscross the surface like rivers seen from above. These veins connect to larger ones, forming highways of sweetness that travel to the stem, the trunk, the roots. This transport is called translocation, a soft pressurized movement through sieve tubes and companion cells, all guided by water potential and osmotic balance. It's not just chemistry, it's choreography. And yet the leaf does more than just make and move. It shields, it cools. It protects the tree from overheating through transpiration, the slow, controlled release of water vapor. This invisible mist floats from the underside of leaves and cools the surface like breath on skin. On hot days, a forest can lower local temperatures just by breathing. This evaporative sigh is not a side effect. It is part of the design. It is part of the song. If you were to sit in a quiet grove at midday, with dappled light playing across your face, you might feel something you can't quite name. A stillness that moves, a quiet that pulses. That's the music of the chlorophyll. It's in the shimmer of poplar leaves as they twist on slender stems. It's in the droop of willow branches swaying in slow arcs. It's in the way the sun warms one part of the canopy before the others, and how the leaves lean toward that warmth like worship. This music is not metaphor. Some scientists have begun recording the vibrations in plants, frequencies so small, so fine that they live just outside our perception. Leaves emit tiny ultrasonic clicks as water moves through their vessels. Some sounds may signal drought or light changes or growth. These are not cries or shouts, but subtle murmurings, like the creak of a ship's hull in open sea. Chlorophyll may not make the sound, but it is the reason the leaf lives to sing. The green world is not voiceless. It is simply patient. Its song spans hours, days, seasons. A leaf that unfurls in April may sing its final note in October, falling gently to the ground where its sugars feed the soil and begin another cycle. Even in decay, the music continues. Bacteria and fungi pick up the theme, transforming carbon into new forms. The song becomes part of roots, part of bark, part of breath. And so, chlorophyll is not just a pigment. It is a participant in life's longest-running symphony, one that began in ancient oceans with the first photosynthetic microbes, and that now echoes across every meadow, forest, and hill. It is why our sky stays blue, why the air remains sweet, why breath returns to us each morning. To look at a leaf is to see a story in motion, a story written not in words but in wavelengths. It is the music of light, woven into matter and sung in green. Let's drift deeper into the leaf's soft green chambers, where the sun's memory is tucked into molecules and patterns that live quietly across time. If the first section was the moment of music, the transformation of light into sugar, then this is the resonance, the way that song travels outward and downward through the tree, through the seasons, and into the very design of life itself. For what is chlorophyll, really, but the quiet architect of breath and sweetness, growth and decay? Every living thing that depends on oxygen owes its life to this process that occurs in silence. The leaf does not demand recognition. It does not proclaim its function with color or movement, but still it gives. Every breath you take, every exhale softened with carbon, is part of an invisible trade that has been ongoing for billions of years. You are made of this song. So is every fruit, every blade of grass, every drop of sap. The sugar created by chlorophyll flows into apples and almonds, carrots and grains. It becomes feathers, fur, and skin. It becomes stories. And these sugars do more than feed. They build. They form the cellulose that stiffens the cell walls of the plant, giving structure to stem and trunk, strength to roots and lift to petals. They become starch stored in roots for hard winters, or converted into nectar for bees. Each use is chosen not with thought, but with need, with the logic of survival that has guided green life since the first cyanobacteria turned sunlight into energy in the shallow oceans long before forests stood on land. The song of chlorophyll, then, is also a song of ancestry. Fossils of ancient leaves show impressions of their veins, like delicate imprints pressed into stone. These veins carried the same kinds of sugars, followed the same patterns of light harvesting that we see today. And though the shapes of leaves have changed, and though chlorophyll has adapted in subtle ways, the melody remains. The same essential song, written again and again into each new spring. In this green song lies a deep wisdom, the knowledge that light is not something to be chased but welcomed. Leaves do not grow at random. They arrange themselves in spirals, in alternating patterns, in flat layers angled just so, each one maximizing light while avoiding shadow. Some plants tilt their leaves to follow the sun's path across the sky, a slow dance called heliotropism. Others fold at night, closing gently to conserve water and warmth. These movements, too slow for our eyes, are part of the song's rhythm. The leaf is never idle. Even in shade, even in wind, it continues to adjust. Some thicken their cuticles to survive harsh sun. Some grow tiny hairs to scatter excess light. In deserts, leaves become narrow, waxy needles. In rainforests, they grow wide and drip-tipped, shedding water quickly so light can reach the cells beneath. Every adaptation is a verse, a variation, an answer to the question, how do I keep singing when the light is scarce or harsh or brief? And the answer is never stillness, it is transformation. Consider the deciduous trees, which shed their leaves in autumn not as loss but as preparation. As daylight wanes, chlorophyll begins to break down, revealing the pigments that waited all summer in shadow. Red anthocyanins emerge, their presence linked not just to color but to protection, shielding the leaf's inner tissues as it reabsorbs valuable nutrients. Yellow xanthophylls reflect light away, cooling the cells. And brown tannins remain as the final whisper of structure, the last note before the leaf lets go. Even evergreen needles, though they persist through snow and frost, are not immune to this seasonal rhythm. Their chlorophyll cycles through repair and renewal. Some trees grow darker in winter, their green deepening as they shield their machinery from cold light. Others maintain lighter hues, allowing photosynthesis to continue, albeit slowly. These subtle shifts are not static. They are a quiet negotiation with the world. Meanwhile, the sugars produced in one part of the plant affect the growth of others. A shaded branch may receive extra nourishment from sunlit leaves elsewhere. A damaged shoot may be bypassed, its path of sugar rerouted to more vital limbs. This allocation is part of the plant's internal economy, governed by hormone signals and pressure gradients, all orchestrated without a brain, yet with astonishing precision. It is not decision-making as we understand it, but it is intention. And in this intention, the song becomes shared. Pollinators are drawn to flowers not just by color, but by nectar rich with the sugars made in green leaves. Fruits ripen with stored light. Seeds swell with carbohydrates that will one day feed new roots. Chlorophyll gives and gives again, never hoarding, always flowing. The song begins in one cell but echoes through forests and fields, into beehives and bellies, into the pulse of migration and the rhythm of seasons. Even humans in our complexity are bound to this song. We eat the products of chlorophyll every day, often without knowing it. The bread, the berries, the tea, the spice, each one is a memory of sunlight caught in green. Each bite is a kind of remembering, a continuation of that ancient exchange between leaf and light, air and earth. Without this, civilization would crumble, yet it continues day after day, leaf by leaf, in silence. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this story is how quiet it all remains. No noise announces the conversion of photons into electrons. No sound alerts us when a sugar molecule is born. But these transformations shape everything around us. In the great scales of the atmosphere, the global balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide depends on this process. Forests breathe out what we breathe in. Our exhale becomes their food. This reciprocal breath is the most intimate conversation, yet we rarely notice its rhythm. But if you sit beneath a tree and let your breath slow, if you watch the leaves move not as decoration but as participants, you might begin to hear it, not with ears but with attention. The shimmer of sunlight through maple leaves, the dappled patterns that shift with breeze, the light green flush of new growth, all of it sings. All of it carries the quiet voice of chlorophyll, woven into the pulse of life. This is not just a song of plants. It is a song of light becoming life, of atoms rearranged by energy so gentle it does not burn, so constant it does not fail. Chlorophyll is the translator, the alchemist, the scribe. And the language it writes in, sunlight, sugar, breath, is one that binds all beings together, across time, across kingdoms, across the turning of the world. And now the song lingers, fading gently into the hush of late afternoon light. The leaves, once bright with sun, now shift into shadow, their edges lit with gold. Within them, chlorophyll still works, still gathers, still spins the last light of day into sugar. But everything slows. The rhythm softens. And like a lullaby nearing its final verse, the leaf prepares for night. This preparation is not panic, it is trust. The leaf does not fear darkness. It knows it will return to light. So it folds into itself, not physically but metabolically, closing its pores, easing its chemical flows, conserving its precious waters. The sugars made today are passed along, some stored for tomorrow, some offered to growing roots, some sent to form the fibers of new bark. The song of chlorophyll continues, even when the light fades. As the tree settles, so too does the forest. The entire canopy shifts its breath. Birds grow quieter, the wind slows, and the green that stretched outward all day begins to hold inward, reflecting less, gathering more. The air cools, dew begins to form. And beneath the leaves, in the tissues where the light once danced, the memory of the day is held not in sound or sight but in glucose molecules and chemical bonds. The day is not lost, it has been transformed. There is something sacred in this process, a kind of devotion. The leaf offers its entire surface to the sky, asking nothing but light and returning everything in sweetness and breath. It does this without ego, without haste. Whether in jungle heat or mountain chill, whether chewed by insects or kissed by rain, it keeps singing. Even when it withers, it does so in generosity, releasing its last sugars to the soil, to the fungi, to the next generation. Nothing is wasted. Even in decay, there is song. When the season shifts and the days short, chlorophyll begins its graceful retreat. It does not vanish all at once. Rather, it steps aside, allowing other pigments to step forward. Yellows and oranges, once hidden, now shimmer like quiet trumpets. Reds bloom in maple leaves as sugars concentrate in the veins. Each hue is a phrase in the closing stanza of the song, a reminder that endings can be beautiful, that decline can be vivid, that even farewell can be part of a cycle. The falling of a leaf is never just a drop, it is a return. As it drifts to the ground, it carries the remnants of light once caught and carbon once held. In the soil, it will be broken down, its sugars freed once more. Microbes and worms will take up its parts, and through them the story will continue. Roots will drink the dissolved memory. New leaves will rise. New songs will be sung. It is not rebirth, it is continuation. And through all of this, the chlorophyll never asks to be seen. It hides behind green, beneath membranes, within cells. It does not call attention to itself, even though without it life would halt. It is the quiet heart of the plant, beating not in pulses but in photons, working not in noise but in necessity. The soft engine of all breath. Even as humans have come to understand the process, mapping out the photosystems, nomming the proteins, drawing the electron transport chains. There is something about chlorophyll that remains poetic. You can explain it all on a chart, trace each molecule's journey, calculate the exact energy yield. And yet, none of that captures what it feels like to stand in a field of sunlight, breathing in the air that was shaped by leaves. We forget sometimes that the oxygen we breathe is a gift from plants, that our very blood carries the iron that once came from soil, moved through roots, carried by xylem, supported by sugars that came from green light. Our cells whisper with the remnants of the forest. Our lives echo with the silent music of leaves. So much of what sustains us is invisible. The photosynthetic pigments, the gaseous exchanges, the molecular symphonies played in every leaf. We walk past trees without knowing what they are doing. We sit beneath branches and overlook the fact that they are working for us, feeding the air, softening the sun, holding the rain. And still the chlorophyll sings, not for applause, not for reward, but because that is its nature. There is a tenderness to this, a humility. The leaf does not measure its worth in output or recognition. It measures in light received, in sugars given, in balance kept. And perhaps in this green humility we can learn something. To give without asking, to transform gently, to live quietly in the service of life. Next time you see a leaf, pause. Look not just at its shape or color, but at its purpose. Know that inside it, light is being turned into sweetness. Know that inside it there is a green world at work, a world older than cities, older than stone, older than language, and that even when you cannot hear it, it is singing. This is the song written in chlorophyll, a song of silence and softness, of sunlight held in a green palm, of sugar made from sky. It is not a song you can hum, but it is one you already carry in every breath, in every cell, in every quiet moment under the trees. Beneath the rustle of leaves and the dappled hush of sunlight, something ancient stirs, quietly, deeply, far below where footsteps fall. The roots of trees do not sleep. They do not wait, they reach. Silently, slowly, with a patience shaped by time and gravity, they move through the earth, searching not with eyes but with feel. If the trunk is the memory of seasons and the leaves are the language of light, then the roots are the pulse, soft, constant, hidden, alive. It begins at the seed. Even before the stem breaks toward the sun, the root pushes downward, as if the plant remembers that all life must begin by listening to the dark. This first root, the radical, senses moisture and minerals, curling gently toward the earth's cool breath. It is not random. It is guided by signals, by gradients of water and chemical cues. Some roots grow deeper, anchoring the plant into place. Others spread wide, weaving themselves into webs that mirror the branches above. This branching, this fractal symmetry, echoes through nature, through lungs, through rivers, through thought. Within the root lies a central thread of stillness and motion. Water enters through microscopic hairs, each one a delicate sponge pressed to soil. These hairs are ephemeral, lasting only a few days, then replaced again and again like tiny messengers constantly renewed. They are the fingertips of the tree, exploring, tasting, remembering. They draw in not just water but nutrients, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, each element a syllable in the silent language of growth. The cells within roots are careful readers of the world. Some bend in response to gravity, growing downward no matter how the seed lies. Others sense barriers and steer around them, never pushing, always adjusting. This is not thought, but it is intelligence. The kind of knowing that does not need eyes. A knowing born of interaction, of response, of continuous becoming. Inside the root, beneath the layers of skin and cortex, lies the vascular core, xylem and phloem bundled like soft threads. The xylem lifts water up to the highest branches, defying gravity through capillary action and the pull of evaporation. The phloem carries sugars downward, made from light and sent into the dark. It is a loop, a circulation, a pulse, not one that beats in seconds, but in hours, in days, a rhythm that doesn't stop. Even at night, even in winter, something still flows. And roots are never alone. Beneath every tree, beneath every shrub and grass, there is a community. Fungi stretch their hyphae into the soil, delicate filaments thinner than a human hair. These fungal threads connect with roots, forming mycorrhizal networks, partnerships older than language. The fungus brings minerals from distant soil, sometimes from meters away. The plant shares sugars in return sweet drops of stored sunlight. It is a dance, a trade, a quiet interdependence. Some call it the wood wide web, but it is more than that. It is family. Through these networks, signals pass. A tree under attack from insects may release chemical cues into its roots, which pass the message to others nearby. Those trees, though untouched, begin to produce defenses. This is not noise. It is not panic. It is preparation. And sometimes older trees, the elders of the forest, send nutrients to saplings through these threads, not because they must, but because they can, because the forest is not just a collection of individuals. It is a breathing, living network. So much of this occurs beyond our sight, beneath our noticing. Yet it is here in the soil that much of the forest's true life unfolds. The roots respond to drought by growing deeper, seeking moisture in hidden pockets. They sense nearby roots and slow their growth to avoid competition or twist away from toxins in the soil. Some even recognize their kin, growing more generously around sibling plants. This is not instinct, it is presence. Roots also carry memory. In times of stress, the chemical makeup of roots changes. These changes can linger, altering how the plant responds to future challenges. A tree that has survived drought may grow differently for years, its roots expanding more cautiously, its water storage deeper. In this way, the root remembers, not in the way a brain does, but in the way stone remembers wind. Slowly, permanently. And there is breath here too. Though we think of photosynthesis as the life-giving force, the roots must also breathe. Oxygen moves through tiny pores in the soil, reaching the cells of the root. If the soil is compacted or waterlogged, the roots can suffocate. So the tree adjusts. It slows. Some plants, like mangroves and bald cypress, grow aerial roots that rise into the air like fingers, sipping oxygen from the wind. Even in the muddiest silence, life finds a way to breathe. As the roots grow, they leave trails behind. Microbial communities gather around them, feeding on sugars secreted by the root tips. In return, these microbes fix nitrogen, break down minerals, fend off pathogens. The root is not alone. It is surrounded by helpers, shaped by the very life it supports. This invisible cooperation is called the rhizosphere, a living halo around each root, alive with exchange. If you were to place your ear to the ground very gently and listen, not with sound but with imagination, you might feel it, the slow pulse of life moving through the soil. Not rushing, not screaming, just moving quietly, purposefully. The root grows, the water flows, the sugar sinks, and the earth responds, everything touches, everything speaks. The quiet pulse of roots is a story older than mountains. It predates forests. It predates flowers. It is the first embrace between land and life. And it continues today, beneath sidewalks and gardens, beneath cities and fields, beneath your very feet. A green heartbeat, steady and slow. To know this is to walk differently, to pause before pulling a weed, to tread more gently on forest paths, to understand that beneath every step there are lives unfolding, not loudly, not quickly, but deeply, with purpose, with presence. And so the roots grow on. Without eyes they feel, without ears they listen, without voices they speak, and their pulse, soft, enduring, unseen, beats quietly in the dark. Let's drift further into the dark, damp earth where roots live not in stillness, but in ceaseless motion so slow it escapes the eye. Here, in this hidden labyrinth of threads and tunnels, the pulse continues, not with urgency but with quiet insistence. Each root tip, each branching finger, each microscopic hair whispers into the soil, asking, listening, reaching. Beneath the surface, life is not asleep. It is at work, unfolding silently with an ancient grace. The forest above may seem the most alive, but the forest below is the one that remembers. In the woven matrix of roots lies not only the present but the accumulated lessons of years gone by. Roots hold onto minerals that came from long-eroded stone. They trace the pathways of streams that dried up seasons ago. Their patterns show where fires once touched the edge of the woods, where frost once hardened the ground. And still they grow, not in fear but in adaptation. The cells of a growing root divide in orderly waves. At the very tip is the meristem, a cluster of perpetual youth. These cells replicate not randomly but with purpose, forming protective caps to shield the growing end from harm. As they move forward, they also branch, sensing where nutrients lie. Some root branches die off quickly, having found nothing. Others flourish, wrapping themselves around pockets of richness. This is not guessing, it is guidance. A kind of directional sense, drawn from signals as delicate as shifts in moisture and pH. Beneath old trees, some roots remain for centuries. They grow thicker over time, becoming like underground limbs. They arch under boulders, they press against old roots from previous generations. They hold the tree upright through storms and seasons. These structural roots carry water and stability. Around them, fine feeder roots weave and reweave the ever-changing story of nourishment. The large and the small, the permanent and the temporary, working together in a slow choreography that never stops. And what they do together is not just survival, it is care. There is evidence now, gathered by scientists in forests around the world, that trees send sugars to struggling neighbors. A tree in shade may receive support from one in sun. A tree injured by disease may still be fed through shared roots or fungal networks. These are not choices made by thought but by design. The design of ecosystems shaped to last, not to win. This underground support system is as complex as any city. Through mycorrhizal connections, one tree can connect with dozens of others. Fungi act as intermediaries, sometimes even as gatekeepers, deciding which trees receive what and when. Different species of fungi have different preferences, and they, too, communicate chemically. A cedar may share with another cedar through one fungal network, while a birch connects to a fir through another. These networks are not uniform. They are specific, and they shift as the forest changes. All the while, roots respond to more than just soil. They respond to sound. In experiments, roots have shown an ability to grow toward certain frequencies. The vibrations made by flowing water, too faint for human ears, can guide root tips toward hydration. This is not folklore. This is data. And though we may not yet understand the full language of roots, we are beginning to sense that they hear more than we thought possible. There is also light, even here. Some roots, when exposed to sun, will shrink away. Others grow translucent sheaths to shield themselves. Light-sensitive proteins guide them, telling them where to turn and where to pause. These proteins, related to those in leaves, allow roots to remain underground where they are most protected. But they also help roots find their way back if disturbed, as if the plant always knows which direction is home. Water, too, is not taken blindly. Roots can distinguish between salty and fresh water. They grow toward the moisture that will nourish and turn away from water that will harm. In coastal environments, some plants evolve filters in their roots to separate salt from drinkable water. In deserts, others grow roots that dive deep and fast, racing against time to tap the fleeting rains. These responses are not reactions, they are strategies. Slow, silent strategies passed down through genes, through years, through life itself. And always there is the slow pulse of exchange. Nutrients are absorbed and sent upward. Sugars are received from above. Hormones, too, travel in both directions. Auxins and cytokinins, gibberellins and abscisic acid, each one carries a message. Grow faster, slow down, prepare for drought, form new shoots. The plant is not divided between above and below. It is one being, whole, communicating with itself through the lines drawn by roots. Even in extreme cold, roots do not sleep. They slow, yes, their chemistry cooling with the soil. But deep beneath the frost line, roots remain alive. They gather water when they can. They adjust their cell membranes to prevent freezing. Some plants form antifreeze proteins, preventing ice crystals from piercing their tissues. Others form root nodules with nitrogen-fixing bacteria, ensuring a steady supply of life's essential elements, even when nothing grows above ground. In the tropics, roots face a different challenge: heat and competition. Their roots form buttresses wide and flat to anchor trees in shallow soil. Others sprawl across the surface, quickly claiming space, forming thick mats that prevent erosion. In rainforests, roots must work fast, for nutrients are flushed away with each storm. Yet even in haste, they remain connected. Even in competition, they remain aware. There is a kind of poetry in how roots persist. They do not demand attention. They are rarely seen. But without them, the tallest trees would fall. Without them, there would be no leaves to catch light, no branches to hold nests, no fruit to fall. Roots are not the beginning of the plant. They are its foundation, its support, its memory. And in every root tip lies the quiet pulse of resilience. To touch a root, gently unearthed and resting in your palm, is to hold something that has known the dark and grown anyway. Something that is bent but not broken. Something that has carried life not for minutes or hours, but for seasons, for years. That root is the part of the plant that has felt the earth's heartbeat, that has pressed into silence and pulled back sweetness. So the pulse continues, unseen but unbroken. In the rain and the drought, in the frost and the thaw, in the quiet and the storm, roots hum with life. Roots hold the forest together. Roots sing their own soft hymn, not to be heard but to be felt. Now the forest quiets, not because the world has stopped, but because it has settled. Dusk draws down and shadows stretch along the mossy floor. Birds fold into feathers. Wind sinks into stillness. But beneath all this calm, the roots remain awake. Their pulse continues, deep, slow, and constant. It does not waver when the sun disappears. It does not pause for rest. The roots remember what light forgets, that life is not in brightness alone, but in what holds us steady when light is gone. This pulse is not made of heartbeats. It is made of flow, of water drawn upward by the invisible thirst of leaves, of sugar sent downward in the dark. It is made of signals, subtle and soft, carried through threads of wood and strands of fungus. The tree is not one alone. It is a chorus sung in soil, and the roots are its rhythm section, drumming in silence, guiding everything above with what happens below. What holds a tree through a storm is not just the strength of its trunk, but the depth of its roots. A wind may bend branches and tear at leaves, but it is the invisible grip underground that determines whether a tree will stand. And yet, even this grip is not brute force. It is grace. Roots do not clutch. They wrap. They intertwine. They fold themselves around rock and into crevice. Their hold is firm but gentle. Their strategy is not resistance but flexibility. They yield just enough to survive. And when a tree falls, whether by axe, by age, or by storm, the roots do not die in vain. They leave behind a map. Other roots will follow their trails, reclaim their spaces, feed on the decaying tissues, and carry forward the nutrients stored there. Fungal networks remain. Bacteria shift. The architecture of one life becomes the scaffold of another. Even in collapse, the root continues its service. Even in breaking, it gives. Wetlands roots breathe upward. They form knees or loops or stilts to reach the oxygen above water. In alpine places, roots hold soil together on steep slopes, preventing landslides with their tenacity. In grasslands, roots spread wide and shallow, forming dense mats that endure fire, grazing, and drought. In deserts, they dive deep, tapping hidden aquifers. Each adaptation is a verse in the song of survival. Each form is a response to the land's whisper. The root listens, and the plant responds. And in listening, roots shape the earth itself. Over time, they break rock into soil. They bind particles with organic matter. They guide erosion, sculpt terrain. Roots do not just live in the world, they build it. Every forest floor, every garden bed, every patch of wild grass is held in place by the work of roots. They are the fingers that keep the planet from unraveling. They are the fabric that holds fertility. There is a stillness in roots that belies their intelligence. They do not chase. They do not flee, but they do choose. They navigate. They send out scouts. They retreat from danger and expand toward opportunity. And they do this all without eyes or mind. Theirs is an intelligence written in growth patterns and chemical gradients, in cellular shifts and hormonal balances. It is an intelligence that does not ask for attention. It only asks for space to grow. Even time bends differently for roots. A root may take weeks to reach a pocket of water. It may take years to spread around a boulder. It may wait, dormant, for an entire season before awakening to warmth. The root is not impatient. It knows that longevity is not achieved through speed, but through steadiness. It knows that the deepest growth happens in the dark. And perhaps this is why we so rarely notice them. Roots are humble. They are hidden. They are content to remain unseen. But we walk because they hold the land in place. We eat because they nourish the plants. We breathe because they carry the water that rises into the green world above. We survive because of what they give without ever asking to be seen. There is something sacred about that kind of silence, something noble in that kind of strength. The root does not shine, but it supports. It does not bloom, but it feeds. It does not speak, but it knows. And when the forest is at its most quiet, when even the leaves are still and the sky is turning black with night, the pulse of the roots continues, unshaken, unrushed, unfailingly present. In that presence is a lesson, that true power is not always loud, that growth does not need to be visible to be real, that sometimes the most important work is done where no one can see. Roots show us what it means to be grounded, what it means to give deeply, what it means to endure without praise. And so, as the stars rise above and the forest dreams below, the roots breathe on. They pull water. They share signals. They cradle the past and prepare the future. They continue their quiet pulse, holding life together one molecule at a time. If you ever doubt the strength of stillness, remember the roots. If you ever wonder about the purpose of silence, feel the ground beneath you. That pulse you sense, that slow rhythm under your feet, is not just the earth. It is the song of roots, carrying life from the deepest dark to the highest leaf, without ever needing to be seen. Long before a single leaf opens, long before birds begin to sing, the light arrives. It spills over the edge of the horizon, brushes the treetops, and slips through the canopy like a quiet visitor. To us, it is morning, but to the trees it is more than that. It is a signal, a conversation, a rhythm to which they tune their entire being. For trees do not merely grow in light, they listen to it, carefully, constantly. And in that listening, they learn how to live. Light to a tree is not just brightness. It is information. The angle of sunlight, the quality of its wavelengths, the length of its presence, all these shape how a tree behaves. Embedded in every cell are molecules that detect light, not just its presence, but its color, its direction, its duration. These are the tree's eyes, though they do not see. They are proteins with names like phytochromes and cryptochromes, light-sensitive sentinels that awaken with the dawn and sleep with the dusk. When morning arrives, the blue and red wavelengths of light strike these molecules and the tree responds. Hormones begin to shift. Auxins stretch toward the new angle. Sugars begin to flow. Stomata open like mouths in the leaves, drinking in carbon dioxide. The chloroplasts, those tiny green engines, activate, aligning themselves to catch each photon with precision. The tree does not wait. It begins. Quietly, efficiently, faithfully. And as the sun rises higher, the light grows stronger. But it is not simply a matter of more or less. The color of the light changes through the day, and the tree listens to that too. In the early morning, blue light dominates, encouraging opening, triggering gentle stretches in stems and new leaves. By midday, red light takes over, guiding photosynthesis at full pace. In the evening, as the spectrum warms again, the tree begins to shift inward. Growth slows, respiration adjusts. It is a full-day symphony, orchestrated not by sound but by light alone. This listening is so precise that trees can tell the seasons just by light. In spring, as days lengthen, trees awaken. Buds begin to swell not because of warmth alone, but because the increase in daylight tells them it is time. Light is counted, measured in units not of brightness but of duration. Each day's length is recorded internally, guiding the tree toward flowering, toward leafing out, toward beginning anew. Even if temperatures fluctuate, the tree relies on light to guide its timing. And in autumn, the process reverses. As days shorten, trees prepare to rest. Chlorophyll begins to retreat. Pigments change. Nutrients are drawn back into the core. This is not a reaction to cold, but a response to light. The diminishing sun whispers that winter is near, and the tree obeys not with panic but with poetry. It lets go. It slows down. It leans into dormancy with a calm born of listening. But light is not just about when, it is about where. Trees bend toward light not randomly but with great care. If one side of a stem receives more light, Auxin hormones shift to the darker side, causing the cells there to elongate. This pushes the stem toward the source. This is why branches arch, why saplings tilt, why leaves fan themselves outward in patterns that optimize exposure. This movement, called phototropism, is the body of the tree tuning itself to the sky. In forests where competition for light is fierce, this sensitivity becomes survival. Young trees stretch tall and narrow, racing upward toward the canopy, reaching through every available shaft of light. Older trees broaden their crowns, claiming more sky. Shade-tolerant species adapt differently, optimizing the use of diffuse, filtered light. Their leaves become thinner, larger, more layered. They listen not for brilliance but for softness, for the subtle glow that seeps between giants. Some trees, especially in dense tropical forests, grow leaves that reposition themselves throughout the day, an invisible ballet that tracks the sun's arc. Others change the angle of their leaves seasonally, flattening them in winter to absorb more light, tilting them in summer to reduce heat. These changes are not thoughts. They are adaptations written into the language of proteins and pulses. They are the tree's response to the music of light. Even roots, hidden far below the surface, listen to light indirectly. Signals sent from the leaves inform the roots about the length of day, the quality of light above. In turn, roots adjust their growth, their branching, their water absorption. It is a whole-body awareness, a distributed intelligence. The tree does not see the sun, but it knows it is there. It listens with every cell. Scientists have found that trees can even distinguish between natural light and artificial light. In cities, where street lamps glow through the night, trees may hold their leaves longer in autumn, confused by the extended photoperiod. This can affect flowering, fruiting, and even the rhythm of bird migrations that rely on tree signals. In these subtle disruptions, we are reminded of how deeply trees depend on the honesty of light, on its consistency, on its ancient rhythms. Some species, flowering only occurs after a precise number of daylight hours have passed. These photoperiod thresholds are embedded like clocks in the tree's genetic code. Some trees flower with long days, others with short. Some wait for twilight cues, others respond to changes in light quality during sunrise. These internal calendars are remarkably accurate. A tree may bloom within the same week every year, regardless of fluctuations in weather. It listens to light more closely than we do to time. And still there is more. Trees can also sense the direction of light. They know where the sun rises, where it falls. In mountainous regions, they may angle their leaves slightly away from the strongest rays to avoid overheating. In windy plains, they may grow asymmetrically, responding to light and wind together. The tree does not choose these shapes. It grows them, slowly, carefully, by listening. If you stand in a grove at dawn and look upward, you'll see the leaves glistening in silence. But beneath that quiet is a world alive with sensing. Light touches the surface of each leaf and a cascade of responses begins. Tiny proteins rotate, hormones shift, cells divide, sugars are made. Water is drawn upward in a steady stream. The tree is not just lit, it is awakened. Each ray of light is not just warmth, it is instruction. This is how trees listen to light, not with ears but with awareness, not with thought but with presence. They do not rush. They do not panic. They respond with trust, with memory, with form. And in their stillness, they remind us that to truly grow, one must first learn how to listen. Let's drift deeper now into the quiet awareness of trees, into the space where light is not just seen but interpreted, translated, remembered. Trees are not passive objects beneath the sky. They are dynamic bodies in conversation with light itself. And this conversation doesn't end when the sun sets. In the darkness, too, the memory of light lingers, guiding internal clocks, regulating growth, and whispering instructions written not in sound, but in shifts of molecules and time. Inside every leaf and stem exists a rhythm, a circadian clock that beats not with seconds, but with sunrises. This internal timekeeper allows the tree to anticipate rather than react. Even if placed in total darkness, a tree will continue to open its stomata during the hours it remembers as daylight. It will lower its photosynthesis-related genes as if expecting night. These rhythms are not dependent on the immediate presence of light. They are built from its memory. This memory guides the tree's schedule: when to grow, when to flower, when to store sugars, when to rest, and even more subtly, when to make decisions that affect its form. In spring, when the light is returning, meristematic cells, those at the tips of shoots and roots, begin dividing more actively. Buds swell, new leaves unfold, but these changes are not sudden. They are the result of light gently extending its stay each day, minute by minute, until the tree, in its quiet calculation, knows that it is safe to begin again. Within this rhythm lives another layer of sensitivity. Trees do not simply respond to sunlight, they also perceive shade. When a nearby plant begins to block the light, the quality of the wavelengths that reach the leaves shifts. There is more far-red light, less red. The phytochromes, those pigment sensors nestled in cells, detect this change, and the tree responds. It may grow taller. It may elongate certain shoots. It may reorient its branches. This is called the shade avoidance response, and it allows plants to escape from darkness not by fleeing, but by reshaping themselves toward the sky. In dense forests, these light games become complex. Each species has its strategy. Some tolerate shade, thriving in low-light understories with wide, thin leaves and slow growth. Others demand full sun, racing to reach the canopy before their neighbors. These different strategies shape the architecture of entire forests. Where the light lands, what it touches, how long it lingers. These patterns determine the choreography of the trees, the spacing of their trunks, the width of their crowns, the density of their leaves. And trees are not merely passive to these effects. They create them. A large tree casts shade not just as a byproduct, but as a form of influence. It limits the growth of competitors beneath it. It cools the ground, affects evaporation, shapes the understory. Light becomes not only a resource, but a means of relationship. In this interplay of shade and sun, the forest becomes a woven fabric of shifting illumination, stitched together by thousands of listening plants. Even the bark can participate. In some species, bark reflects light differently depending on texture, color, and thickness. Smooth white bark, like that of the birch, reflects heat and light, protecting the tree from sunscald during cold winters. In other trees, thick dark bark absorbs warmth, helping to wake internal flows earlier in spring. These external features are more than protection. They are part of the light conversation, shaped over generations by what the tree has learned from the sky. And what of light's intensity? Too much light can damage cells, just as too little can starve them. Trees manage this balance with astonishing grace. In bright conditions, leaves may angle themselves to avoid direct beams, or close stomata to reduce water loss. Some produce protective pigments, like anthocyanins, which appear as red or purple and shield sensitive tissues. Others grow waxy coatings or tiny hairs to scatter light across the surface. Every adjustment is a message received and answered. Within the chloroplasts themselves, there is movement. In low light, these tiny green structures line up along the cell walls to maximize absorption. In high light, they move deeper into the cell, hiding from potential damage. These shifts happen quietly within minutes, orchestrated by signals that flow through the cell like gentle tides. The tree is not merely reacting, it is constantly positioning itself in conversation with the light above. And even in the night, the dialogue continues. Certain proteins remain active in darkness, preparing the plant for the return of light. Energy is stored in starches and slowly released. Hormones like melatonin, which plants also produce, may influence growth and repair. The tree does not sleep as animals do, but it rests. It recalibrates. It prepares. Some trees have evolved to bloom only after experiencing a specific number of dark hours. This is called photoperiodism, and it ensures that flowering happens at the right time of year, aligned with pollinators or rainfall. In this way, trees listen not just to light, but to its absence. The length of night becomes a map, guiding the cycles of reproduction and growth. And this sensitivity is so refined that even a single hour's difference in darkness can change the outcome. In polar regions, where light may last for nearly 24 hours in summer and vanish completely in winter, trees still manage to find their rhythm. They adjust their internal clocks, slowing or pausing growth as needed, tracking the tilt of the Earth even when the sun barely dips below the horizon. This ability to adapt is not confusion, it is resilience. Light, even when inconsistent, is always speaking, and the tree, always listening, bends its rhythm accordingly. Perhaps the most beautiful part of this listening is that it does not happen in isolation. Trees growing together in groves or forests can synchronize their behaviors, not by speaking, but by responding to the same cues. In some cases, whole stands of trees will flower at the same time or drop their leaves in unison, triggered by shared exposure to light and dark. These collective movements are not accidents. They are harmonies, sung across space and rooted in light. To walk through such a forest is to step into a symphony unfolding at a pace too slow to hear. But it is there, in the slant of the light through the branches, in the tilt of a leaf toward the morning, in the subtle shimmer of a trunk warmed by afternoon sun. The trees are listening, and in their stillness, they are dancing. This is what it means for a tree to listen to light, not passively, not distantly, but fully through every leaf and stem, every bud and root. Light is not just a source, it is a language, and the tree, with infinite patience, has learned to hear it. Now the light softens. The sun edges downward, casting golden tones through the canopy, brushing trunks with long shadows and warming the last outstretched leaves. But the trees are not done listening. Even in this fading hour, they remain attuned to every subtle shift. The color of the light, its angle, the rate at which it disappears, all of it speaks to the tree. And the tree, as it always has, answers not with words but with change. Evening is not an end for the tree. It is a signal, a cue to lower its rhythms, to close its pores, to begin the slow inward turn that night requires. In this soft surrender, the tree adjusts its breath. Transpiration slows, photosynthesis fades, but cellular life continues. In the hushed dark, sugars are moved, hormones recalibrate, repair begins. The day's lessons, gathered in photons and pigments, are stored in starch and memory. Each night the tree gathers itself inward, not with retreat but with intention. What it has learned from the light is not discarded. It is carried, stored in the very shape of its branches, in the thickness of its bark, in the timing of its growth. Even the tree's silhouette, how it reaches, how it leans, how it spreads, tells the story of light long past. Every curve is an answer to sun and shadow. Every angle is a response to sky. And in the darkest hours, while humans sleep, the forest does not fall silent, it deepens. It becomes still in a way that is not absence but fullness. Owls stir, moths glide, the stars take their places between the limbs. And beneath all of it, the trees remain aware, not alert like animals but attuned. Their roots still pulse with water. Their leaves still hold the shape of light remembered. Their cells continue to tick with internal clocks set not by noise, but by the slow beat of sun and season. In some trees, night triggers movement. Leaflets close, petals curl, stems lower slightly. These circadian responses are gentle, rhythmic, ancient. The tree does not resist darkness, it embraces it, it uses it. For in the absence of light, other work is done. Enzymes shift, tissues strengthen, energy is stored. Tomorrow's growth begins not in the light, but in the preparation made during night. And then, over weeks and months, this conversation with light writes entire chapters into the life of the tree. It decides when a seed will sprout, when a branch will split, when a flower will unfold. It guides dormancy and wakefulness. It draws maps into rings of wood, marking each year's sunlight with subtle variations in density and color. These rings are not just records of time. They are stories of light absorbed and remembered. Even death is marked by light. When a tree dies, its final leaves fall not randomly, but in a pattern dictated by the last cues of shortening days. Its tissues dry and settle, and even as it returns to soil, its structure still holds the echoes of a lifetime of listening. Fallen logs in the forest bear the tilt of trunks that once reached east. Stumps carry the spiral of growth shaped by sun. The dead wood hums with what it once knew. But most trees live for decades, for centuries, some even for millennia. Over such time, they have heard every variation of the sky. They've listened to light as it shifted through ice ages and warming spells, through volcano haze and city glow. They've survived eclipses, fires, droughts. They've adapted to thinning atmospheres and thickening clouds. And all the while, their leaves have turned, their buds have waited, their roots have held. This long listening is a kind of wisdom, a knowing that doesn't seek to explain but to endure. The tree does not rush its response to a single bright day. It watches for patterns. It tracks years, not moments. And this is its secret. It does not mistake intensity for importance. A sudden burst of warmth in winter is ignored. A week of cloud in summer is absorbed with grace. The tree listens to the whole, not just the parts, and in that it teaches patience. It teaches us, too, to look up differently, to see the way leaves lean, to notice how branches arch, to understand that the dance of light and form is not accidental, it is chosen, shaped, remembered. The tree is not merely growing, it is interpreting, translating sun into sugar, yes, but also into shape, into timing, into legacy. Even seeds tucked beneath soil or snow listen. They wait for the correct amount of daylight before opening. Some require darkness to germinate. Others need fire. Still others respond to the precise combination of light and temperature, stored deep within their cells like a forgotten lullaby. These responses are not mistakes. They are survival songs, sung in the language of photons. And so the tree lives day after day, year after year, never tiring of the light, never bored of its return. It greets every morning with readiness, every season with trust. It listens not just for nourishment, but for guidance. It knows that light changes, and it must change too. It must bend, pause, lean, and grow, but never stop, never forget. The next time you stand beneath a tree and feel the dappled sunlight on your face, know that you are standing in the middle of a conversation, one that began before you arrived and will continue long after. The tree is listening to the same light that touches your skin. It is remembering it, transforming it, making life from it. And in this silent exchange between sun and leaf, between time and form, there is a story older than speech. A story not written in ink, but in chlorophyll and lignin and shadow. A story that continues with every rising sun. A story that lives not in noise, but in light. This is how trees listen, not briefly, but always, not loudly, but deeply, not with ears, but with everything they are. Beneath the fallen leaves and softened loam, beneath the whisper of roots and the silence of stone, there lives a world that rarely sees the sun. It is not bright, it is not loud, yet it pulses with life, a slow and ancient murmur carried by filaments too fine for the eye to follow. This is the realm of fungi, the mushroom's hidden self, and it is here that conversations unfold, not in sound, but in molecules and mycelium, not in language, but in response. To the casual eye, a mushroom is just a cap in the dirt, a strange shape in the forest after rain. But that is only the briefest glimpse of a much vaster being. The mushroom is the fruiting body, the visible breath of an underground mind. Below it lies the true form, a network of hyphae stretching through the soil in threads thinner than hair, branching and weaving, sensing and remembering. Mycelium it is called, and it is the quiet architect of forests. This network does not simply grow, it listens. Each hyphal tip is alive with sensitivity, tasting minerals, brushing against stones, recognizing roots. It grows not in straight lines, but in response to need. It curves toward food. It slows near toxins. It splits when the path becomes rich. In this way, mycelium maps the forest floor, not with sight, but with touch. Every inch of progress is a decision, made without a brain, but not without intention. Mushrooms communicate through chemistry. When they encounter a root, they send signals, whispers of carbon, nitrogen, and complex proteins. The tree replies in kind, offering sugars made from sunlight. An agreement forms, a bond. Mycorrhizae they are called, these mutual partnerships between fungus and plant. The mycelium helps the tree absorb minerals and water, reaching into soil pockets the roots could never touch alone. In return, the tree shares energy, a sweet exchange that benefits both. But the network does more than share. It connects. One tree's roots link to another's through fungal threads. Messages pass between them, not words, but alerts, defenses, nutrients, even distress calls. When one tree is wounded by insects, Nearby trees can receive signals through the fungi and begin preparing their own chemical shields. This is not myth. This is science. It has been measured, recorded, witnessed. The forest speaks beneath our feet. Each fungal species brings its own voice to the conversation. Some connect broadleaf trees, others favor conifers. Some are specialists, linking only one type of plant. Others are generalists, weaving between many. These relationships create a patchwork of communication hubs, a living internet beneath the forest floor, a place where information flows not by speed but by need. The mycelial web is not limited to forests. In grasslands, tundras, even deserts, fungi stitch the ground together. They bind soil particles, preventing erosion. They feed microbes, unlock phosphorus, recycle the dead. Their work is invisible but essential. Without them, most plants would wither. Without them, decomposition would halt. The forest would fill with unrotted memory. The cycle would break. And mushrooms, those fleeting fruiting bodies, are the signals that this underground world is thriving. They emerge after rain when moisture kisses the ground and the network is ready to spread spores. Some glow faintly in the dark. Some bloom for a single night. Others rise in troops or rings, dotting the forest like punctuation marks in an unspoken sentence. They are not random. They are ritual. Inside the mushroom cap, spores are formed and released, tiny dusts of possibility carried by wind, by animals, by water. Each spore holds the blueprint of new mycelium. When it lands on a favorable place, it germinates, sends out hyphae, and begins the slow weaving anew. No celebration marks the beginning. No cry announces the birth. Only quiet expansion. Only the continuation of the network. And yet the network learns. It remembers. Experiments have shown that mycelium can anticipate patterns, avoid repeated dangers, and redirect its growth in intelligent ways. Though it lacks neurons, it demonstrates behavior that mimics cognition. It solves mazes. It finds optimal paths. It adapts. The fungal mind is not centered in a head. It is distributed, shared, and grown. This intelligence allows fungi to thrive in difficult places, underneath glaciers, inside radioactive zones, in the hearts of deserts. They break down the unbreakable, lignin in wood, toxins in soil, even plastics under the right conditions. Their enzymes are ancient and versatile. Their patience is unmatched. They work not in bursts but in long rhythms, shaping the world slowly, irrevocably. Fungi also form relationships beyond trees. Some connect with mosses, others with insects. Certain ant species cultivate fungi in underground farms, feeding them leaves and harvesting their growth. Termites build fungal gardens to help digest wood. Even inside the human body, fungal forms exist, some helpful, some harmful, all ancient passengers in our shared story. In this way, mushrooms are more than decomposers. They are composers of balance. They decide who receives what. They moderate the flow of nutrients. They clean the wounds of the forest and cradle the seeds of the future. When a tree falls, it is the fungi who begin the quiet transformation back into soil. When an animal dies, it is the fungi who soften its form, return its elements to the earth. And so the hidden conversations continue, beneath every footstep, beneath every fallen branch. Messages pulse through networks older than the mountains. Partnerships form in the dark. Life rearranges itself in response to fungal decisions. We do not hear these conversations, but the forest does, and it answers. To lie on the forest floor and press your palm to the ground is to rest against a mind that spans miles. A mind that speaks not in sentences but in signals. That listens not with ears but with enzymes. That remembers not with thought but with shape. The mycelium is always listening, always responding, always weaving. And the mushrooms we see, they are only the briefest whispers of something much larger. The forest's punctuation, the earth's breath, a glimpse into a vast and silent dialogue taking place beneath the skin of the world. Let us move now into the deeper threads, where the forest's unspoken thoughts hum gently through the soil. What begins as a filament, thin as breath, becomes a labyrinth of touch and response. The mycelium does not merely stretch, It thinks with movement, computes with growth, and remembers through change. Each turn, each pause, each expansion holds the shape of something it has sensed. This is not randomness. This is the slow mathematics of life underground. To a fungus, time flows differently. It does not measure progress in hours or days, but in temperature, in texture, in chemical shifts. A patch of moist decaying wood, a clump of nutrient-rich humus, a dying root, each becomes a signal, an invitation. The hyphae respond by branching, merging, thickening. Their movements form questions. Is this safe? Is this useful? Is this familiar? And in the answers, the forest's memory expands. Where trees are tall and reach for the sky, the fungi do not compete. They do not climb. They sink, they spread, they wrap around. And in this embrace, they uncover the forgotten. Heavy metals buried in soil, pollutants left behind by fire or flood, ancient residues of volcanic ash, all are touched, transformed, softened by the chemistry of the fungal body. They cleanse without fanfare. They do not need recognition. They simply do what they were shaped to do. Within the network, messages travel not like lightning but like ripples. A signal released by one fungal tip may pass across a web the size of a forest glade. In this way, the fungi act as guardians of equilibrium. They sense when certain areas grow too acidic, too dry, too cold. They redistribute resources, sending enzymes or storing nutrients until conditions stabilize. The mycelium is not reactive, it is responsive, not in panic but in patience. In this patience lies one of the forest's greatest strengths. A tree may lose its leaves in a storm. A bird may abandon its nest. But the fungal web beneath continues, adapting around disturbance. When fire scorches the surface, some fungi awaken, their spores triggered by heat. They rise from the ashes, colonize the deadwood, break it down, and make way for new growth. The forest's rebirth begins not with seeds but with spores. And not all fungi live in harmony with plants. Some are deceivers. They mimic signals, trick roots into giving up sugars without returning nutrients. Others invade the heartwood, weakening trees from within. But even these dark players are part of the balance. Their presence limits overgrowth. They thin the crowded. They open gaps in the canopy for light to reach the floor. Death, too, is part of the dialogue. Some fungi do not wait for death, they find it. The cordyceps, for instance, seeks out insects. It releases spores that attach to the exoskeleton, penetrating and growing inside the host. Eventually, the fungus takes over, altering the creature's behavior, guiding it to a high branch where the fruiting body bursts forth, raining new spores onto the ground below. It is eerie, precise, and deeply natural. Not cruelty, but strategy, honed by time. Elsewhere in calmer forms, fungi stretch into wood long fallen. They curl through layers of bark, unravel cellulose, unlock nutrients. Their enzymes are extraordinary, capable of digesting what no other life form can. White rot fungi, for instance, can break down lignin, the compound that makes wood hard. Brown rot leaves behind a crumbly matrix, soft and dry. These distinctions shape how the forest smells, how it feels underfoot, how it ages. Fungal life does not operate alone. It collaborates constantly. With bacteria, it shares zones of digestion, forming consortia that specialize in decomposing complex materials. With worms and beetles, it trades access for movement. In return, its spores are carried on tiny legs and wings, spread across logs and leaf litter like wind-carried maps. These relationships are not forced. They are mutual, evolved, time-tested. And then there are the lichens, those quiet symphonies of fungus and algae or cyanobacteria growing together on rocks and bark. In these unions, the fungus provides structure while the partner offers photosynthesis. Together, they form living tapestries, softening stone, drawing water from mist, thriving where little else can. Lichens are often the first to arrive in barren places, lava fields, arctic stones, abandoned concrete. They write the first lines of life's return. The language of fungi is written in chemistry. Volatile compounds, subtle scents, shifting pH. Some mushrooms release spores with sudden bursts. Puffballs exhale clouds when touched, while stinkhorns attract insects with their odor. Others form symmetries so precise they appear sculpted. Their shapes, their colors, their seasonality, all are tuned to communication. even if we do not yet fully understand what is being said. Recent studies show that electrical impulses move through fungal networks, spikes of voltage, not unlike nerve signals in animals. These impulses vary in frequency and amplitude. Some researchers speculate they may represent a kind of signaling, a way of marking zones, coordinating growth, or responding to injury. It is still new science, but it reminds us that silence does not equal stillness. That absence of voice does not mean absence of speech. And fungi listen too. They detect vibration. They respond to touch. Some even grow towards sound, following the faint frequencies of moving water or shifting roots. These responses happen without a central brain, yet they are not random. The mycelium is sensitive not just to chemical gradients but to the entire texture of its world. Fungal communities vary with climate, with tree species, with soil type. In a pine forest, you may find amanitas and chanterelles. In hardwood groves, boletes and morels. Each has its role, its rhythm, its companions. Some fruit once a year, others only after fire. Some remain hidden for decades, waiting for the right tree to appear. The fungal world is not hurried, it is deliberate. And in that deliberation, it teaches us something rare. That connection need not be constant to be deep. That communication can happen in pauses, in patterns, in shared direction. The mushrooms we find are the brief translations of a long, quiet dialogue. The real story continues below. So as you walk through the forest and feel the softness of the trail, the spongy cushion beneath your steps, remember this. You are walking not on silence but on speech. Not on emptiness, but on ancient messages passed from root to root, from fungus to fungus, from generation to generation. It is not loud, it is not quick, but it is everywhere. It is always listening, and it is always alive. Now imagine the forest wrapped in fog, the morning hush pressing gently between the trunks, and underfoot the damp softness of moss and scattered needles. You might think that everything is still. But beneath your steps, beneath even the tiniest rootlets, the fungal world is alive, slowly shifting, patiently reaching, always listening. The mycelial network is not asleep. It is humming softly in the deep dark soil, carrying messages of moisture, minerals, and memory. This is not a pause. It is the forest thinking. The conversations of mushrooms do not end with night or winter. They continue in rhythms older than speech, stretching beyond the seasons we see. Some fungal species lie dormant for years, their spores waiting in silence, tucked into cracks of bark, flakes of leaf, corners of stone. Then, with the right breath of rain, the right kiss of decay, they rise not just to grow but to answer. What they become is never random. It is timed. It is tuned. It is the return of a voice that never left. A single mushroom may live for only days, but its mycelium can stretch across acres, unseen and uninterrupted. In some places on Earth, vast networks of one organism have lived for thousands of years, threading under forests, feeding trees, breaking down the fallen, and reshaping the soil with each passing season. These elders of the underground do not move quickly. They do not bloom with grandeur. But they are among the largest and oldest living beings on the planet, teaching us that legacy does not require light or attention, only persistence, only presence. Within these ancient networks lies the continuity of life itself. A fallen branch becomes nourishment, a leaf turned to humus, a dead root softened back into soil. The fungi manage this transition. They do not judge between waste and worth. They see all of it as potential. The discarded becomes valuable again. The ended becomes the beginning. They turn decomposition into design. And while they work in decay, they also create beauty. Some mushrooms emerge in spirals, others in perfect domes, their caps painted with the colors of rust, smoke, ivory, gold. Some glow faintly at night, bioluminescent signals in the dark woods. Others rise in rings that slowly expand year after year, marking the slow conversation between fungus and land. These fairy rings are not myths. They are maps. They trace the growth of the underground with delicate precision. Fungi do not need the sun to survive, yet they are attuned to its rhythms. The timing of fruiting bodies often aligns with lunar cycles. with humidity and temperature shifts that repeat like a quiet chorus across time. They do not watch the sky, but they feel it in the air, in the roots of their partners, in the moisture that travels downward from rain-soaked leaves. They are part of the great choreography of the forest, responding to cues we do not see but that guide them as clearly as song. And their songs are still being discovered. Scientists now isolate compounds from mushrooms that heal, antivirals, antibacterials, immune modulators. These medicines are born not from labs, but from compost heaps and rotting logs. The fungi have always known how to maintain balance, how to protect themselves and their neighbors. We are only beginning to listen to what they've been saying all along. Even the psychedelic mushrooms, once feared and misunderstood, are now being studied for their power to open minds, to ease suffering, to treat wounds the body alone cannot reach. These mushrooms alter perception, but perhaps not by accident. Perhaps they remind us that reality is not fixed, that the forest speaks in layers we rarely access, and that fungi have been gateways for understanding far longer than we realized. And all the while, even as science catches up, the mushrooms keep speaking. In compost bins, they thread through coffee grounds and eggshells. In dead tree trunks, they write their soft scripts of transformation. In city parks, they pop up beside sidewalks. They do not belong only to the wild. They are everywhere, watching, waiting, working. And in this constant working is a lesson we would do well to remember. The mushrooms do not seek credit. The fungi do not need eyes to find connection, nor ears to find meaning. Their strength lies in quiet contribution, in invisible effort, in unwavering collaboration. They are not loud and they are not fast, but they are necessary. Without them, the world would be buried in its own forgetting. So when next you pass a small mushroom growing from a stump, pause. Do not step past it as if it were decoration. It is the fruit of a vast mind, the answer to 1,000 hidden questions. Its presence is not an accident but a reply to something you cannot see. That mushroom is a moment of memory lifted briefly into view, and beneath it lies a network that spans lifetimes, built without bricks, shaped by moisture and decay, and alive with intention. To listen to the mushrooms is not to hear a sound. It is to notice a pattern, to recognize that even the smallest forms are part of something larger, that even decay can be an act of care, that even what is hidden can hold wisdom beyond imagination. The forest does not speak in a single language. It murmurs in leaf fall and branch bend, in root pulse and wind song. And through it all, softly, steadily, the fungi weave their messages. They carry stories from one life to another. They remind the world how to share, how to let go, how to begin again. This is the hidden conversation, the one beneath the fallen logs, the one that turns endings into nourishment, the one that listens longer than any voice. It has no center, no border, no shout, but it moves with purpose. It grows in silence, and it never forgets. High above the forest floor, where the light stretches wide and the wind carries the secrets of distance, there is a world suspended in green. The canopy is not just the roof of the forest. It is its breath, its filter, its whispering sky. To stand beneath it is to look up into mystery, to see only the outer shapes of branches, the undersides of leaves, and the shadows of birds that belong to another world. But to live up there, among the highest limbs, is to dwell where echoes travel not through stone or root, but through wind and wings and rustling leaves. The canopy is an ecosystem unto itself. It floats on the architecture of branches that have stretched outward for decades, sometimes centuries, reaching toward light with unwavering patience. Each limb, each twist of bark, each fork in the wood has been shaped by wind and sun, by the arc of storms and the quiet pull of gravity. Here, trees speak to the sky not with voices, but with their form, spreading wide where light is generous, growing narrow where shade is long, adjusting always, always listening to the shifting air. Within this suspended world, light arrives first. Before the forest floor knows the day has begun, the canopy is already awake. The first rays of morning kiss the outer leaves, warming dew into mist, nudging birds from sleep, and signaling to chloroplasts that it is time to begin their quiet work. The air up here moves freely, not yet caught in the stillness of the lower woods. And in this freedom, messages travel. They move in vibration and scent, in pollen drifting across branches, in the slow fall of seeds borne to the wind. Epiphytes live here, plants that grow on other plants, not as parasites but as quiet tenants. Ferns, orchids, bromeliads nestle into the crooks of limbs, anchoring where rainwater pools and moss clings. Their roots do not touch the earth. They live in air, surviving on fog and cloud and occasional rain. Their lives are shaped by elevation, by breezes that carry insects and spores, by the angles of sunlight filtered through 100 leaves. And where the leaves cluster thickest, microclimates are born. One part of the canopy may be dry, bright, and humming with bees. Just a few branches away, shade cools the bark and beetles crawl beneath the lichen. It is not a uniform sky. It is a mosaic of conditions, each one sculpted by the subtle rise and fall of air currents, the turn of light, the quiet influence of countless lives. Birdsong begins here. It bursts from the upper limbs before it trickles down to the underbrush. Songs echo through the canopy like morning prayers, some long and looping, others brief and sharp. These sounds do more than announce presence. They mark territory, they court, they warn. The branches carry these echoes like strings of an instrument, bending and softening them with the sway of leaves. Sometimes one song answers another. Sometimes silence follows, heavy with meaning. Insects rise with the warmth. Butterflies drift in shafts of gold. Ants patrol the bark. Bees hover and dance. Tiny midges form clouds that swirl like soft breath. Spiders hang delicate webs between twigs, catching not just food but sunlight itself. Each thread trembles with information, each shimmer a note in the daily music of the high woods. And then there are the mammals, squirrels racing across branches, monkeys leaping from tree to tree, sloths curling into the shadow of a palm frond. They live not on the ground but in motion. The trees are their roads, their shelters, their stage. Their calls echo to chitters, hoots, whistles, woven into the layered hush of the canopy. Even when no one sings, the leaves rustle with the memory of motion. But the most constant voice in the canopy is the wind. It arrives without a source, brushing across leaves, bending twigs, shifting the air in waves. Each gust is a touch, each breeze a gesture. The trees lean into it, creak softly, drop twigs that spiral downward like slow-falling stars. The wind carries more than sound, it carries messages. It moves spores. It brings the scent of far-off fires, the salt of distant oceans, the perfume of unseen blossoms. The canopy is a listening bowl, turned upward, catching the sky. Yet even in all this movement there is steadiness. The limbs do not sway without memory. Trees that live in the canopy grow wood that twists, knots, and strengthens in response to every breeze. This is known as reaction wood, formed where stress is constant. The tree remembers the wind, not with thought but with structure. Its strength is written in spiral grain and thickened bark, in branches that curve like arms always reaching. Leaves, too, are shaped by the canopy's rules. Some are small and thick, designed to conserve water in constant sun. Others are broad and soft, catching every drop of rain that falls. Some hang loosely, fluttering to cool themselves. Others tilt, shedding water quickly. All are listening, measuring the light, adjusting their orientation, flexing their stomata in time with humidity and breath. And every so often something falls. A twig, a seed, a leaf that has let go. These small events are not random. They are the messages of the canopy returned to the forest floor. Seeds spiral down, carried by wings or parachutes, searching for a crack of light below. Rain drips slowly from leaf to leaf, gathering minerals, carrying them to roots. Even the fall of a dead branch opens a shaft of sun, making space for the next tree to reach. The canopy is a place of edges between light and shadow, air and leaf, motion and stillness. To live here is to live in balance. To fall is to descend into another world entirely. To remain is to dance with risk and grace. And so, the trees send up their tallest selves, their boldest branches, their greenest dreams. They do not climb upward for dominance, but for conversation, with the light, with the wind, with each other. And through all of this, through the rustling leaves, the echoing calls, the flickering shadows, there is one truth: the canopy listens back. It hears the beat of wings, the tremble of rain, the sigh of approaching dusk. And as the sky dims, it changes again. The day birds quiet, the night insects stir, the rhythm resets, the echoes shift. This is the skyward side of the forest. Not empty space, but a layered, breathing world. A place where trees do not just reach, they hear. And in their highest limbs, they hold every echo the world has given them. Let's rise further into the green cathedral of branches and breeze, where the canopy stretches across the forest like a living roof woven from time and breath. Up here, the ordinary rules of the forest floor fade away. Gravity softens, sounds scatter, and life hangs in a delicate balance shaped by height, hunger, and light. The canopy is not just a structure. It is a living skin stretched between sky and soil, pulsing gently with wind and light, echoing the voices of every creature that calls it home. Above, sunlight arrives in fragments. It filters through leaves like drifting lace, broken into shafts and shadows that change from moment to moment. This dappled light isn't uniform. It falls in patterns, creating microclimates where some leaves feast and others wait. The trees know this. They remember where light lingers. Their branches grow toward it, their leaves shifting with the arc of the day. They form a slow choreography that responds without pause. Some trees become ladders. Their trunks rise straight and smooth, their branches spaced for climbing vines and curious animals. Others stretch wide, offering platforms of limbs that hold whole communities of life: frogs nestled in knots, birds weaving nests from spider silk and lichen, insects burrowing into bark softened by sun. Each surface is used. Each crevice tells a story. And through them all moves the language of the canopy: soft footsteps, wing beats, wind tremors, and the occasional hush that means a predator is near. The forest above the forest is not quiet. It is filled with sound, but not all of it is heard. Some of it is sensed: a pressure change, a tremor in the bark, a rush of air through feathered leaves. A monkey's leap sets branches swaying for minutes after it has gone. A bird's landing causes seeds to scatter, a falling nut to tap its rhythm onto the leaves below. These are echoes not of noise, but of motion. The trees feel them. They do not react like animals do, but their tissues respond, thickening, bending, bracing for weight. Light is not the only current that moves here. Air itself becomes sculptor and messenger. As wind pushes through the highest branches, it carves the trees slowly, persistently. It shapes their crowns, leans their limbs, polishes their leaves. In constant exposure, the trees adapt, not by fighting the wind, but by learning its rhythm. In the bend of each limb, the twist of each trunk, the sway of each tall spine, you can read the memory of countless storms. When storms come, the canopy sings louder, the leaves hiss, branches creak and knock like slow drums. Rain clatters down in waves, bouncing from leaf to leaf until it reaches the mossy earth below. The trees, rooted in deep stillness, do not resist. They sway, they yield, and in that movement is their strength. Trees that have survived 100 tempests have not done so by standing stiff, but by listening, by knowing when to lean and when to let go. Epiphytes catch this rain and hold it. In tiny pools formed by leaf whorls and bark hollows, insects breed, frogs hide, seeds germinate. These pockets become miniature worlds, aquatic, isolated, essential. They are nurseries in the sky, invisible from below, yet vital to the lives of the canopy. Each one holds echoes of rain, of life, of upward-reaching hope. Fungi live here too, hidden in bark, clinging to damp places where light never fully dries the wood. Spores drift upward on warm air, settling where they find shade and sustenance. Some fungi are symbiotic, sharing nutrients with their tree hosts. Others decompose the fallen branches caught between limbs. Still others wait quietly, blooming only in the rarest conditions, their fruiting bodies delicate and brief as dreams. And even these fleeting forms add to the soundless story unfolding above. Pollinators rise into this realm daily. Bees and butterflies, beetles and birds all carry the genes of the forest from tree to tree. They follow scent trails invisible to us, map the canopy by memory and magnetism, feeding from flower to flower. Their wings leave trails of vibration. Their landing pads are petals held high above the ground, and when they move, they carry echoes, not just of blossoms, but of seasons, of cycles, of futures still blooming. At night, this place transforms again. Bats emerge, tracing the branches in loops and arcs. Moths rise like soft ash, fluttering in and out of pools of moonlight. Owls blink in silence from high perches, their feathers absorbing sound, their gaze turning slowly. The canopy breathes differently in the dark. Its sounds deepen. Its pulse slows. Its echoes stretch out longer, carried across still air. Even the leaves seem to hold their breath a little longer. This is not stillness as we think of it. It is a higher order of motion, one not frantic but rhythmic, not urgent but aware. Trees in the canopy know the difference between a heavy snow and a quick rain. They adjust their posture, their cells realign. Even the bark changes. Some trees produce waxy coatings to guard against dehydration, while others grow spongy tissue to absorb more air and moisture. These adjustments are not decisions. They are learned responses, encoded in the tree's very bones. And the echoes here are not only physical, they are biological. A tree that experiences drought in the canopy will produce leaves of different shapes in the following season, thicker, perhaps smaller, better suited for conservation. The canopy remembers. The next generation of leaves is born from that memory. In this way, form becomes record. The shape of a tree's crown can tell you its story, where the wind has pushed it, where lightning has split it, where space has allowed it to thrive. Seeds born here are shaped for flight. They spin, drift, glide. They do not fall in silence. They whisper their design into the air, riding it for meters, sometimes kilometers before settling. And in that movement they carry echoes of the canopy forward. Each seed holds a record of what the tree has heard, of how it has lived, how it has bent, how it has grown. That record is written in shape and shell, in oil and coat, in the quiet programming of emergence. And so, high above the ground, this skybound world continues. It listens without ears. It speaks without voice. It remembers without writing. The canopy is a layer of echo and light, of gesture and resilience, of questions answered in curve and branch and sway. To walk beneath it is to feel the presence of stories you cannot fully know. To climb into it, if only with your gaze, is to glimpse how the forest holds its knowledge in the wind. Every rustle is a message, every shift of leaf a phrase. The echoes that live in the canopy are not past sounds, they are present awareness. And as the sun tilts westward and shadows stretch long, the canopy adjusts again. It closes what must close, turns what must turn, and waits, always listening, always echoing, always reaching toward the sky. Now imagine the canopy at dusk, when the sun has just slipped below the horizon and the last rays stretch long across the highest leaves. The birds begin to quiet and the wind calms into a hush that feels like breath held between day and night. This is not silence, but a softer kind of sound, one that settles on branches and rests in the folds of leaves. The forest above is preparing not to sleep, but to listen in a different way. Its echoes shift. They slow. They deepen. Evening in the canopy is a transition, a moment when light and sound change hands. The diurnal voices fade, but the world does not fall mute. Instead, it hands its language to the insects, to the creak of cooling bark, to the soft scurry of night creatures beginning their climb. Moths replace butterflies. Owls answer where warblers once called. Bats trace invisible paths between branches, their wings catching the dim light like shadows come alive. The canopy doesn't sleep. It just sings in a lower key. And as the night unfolds, the air becomes cooler, more still. Dew begins to form on leaf tips, hanging like pearls from the canopy's green lacework. These droplets reflect moonlight, trembling slightly in the quiet air, waiting for morning to turn them into mist. Each one is an echo of moisture that rose through the tree from root to branch, now resting at the highest edge of the forest. The journey of water ends here, at the lip of a leaf. Some trees flower at night, their blossoms timed not for bees but for bats and night moths. These flowers open in the dark, offering nectar and scent rather than color. Their perfume is heavy and deliberate, drifting through the still air, carried far on the quiet breeze. It is their way of calling across the canopy, their signal in a world where sight fades but fragrance endures. The creatures that find them do not need to see. They simply follow the scent, navigating by memory, instinct, and the gentle hum of wings. Above all this, stars begin to emerge. They appear through gaps in the canopy, framed by leaves that shift as the air breathes. Trees do not see them as we do, but they are aware of the night's coming. Their internal clocks continue ticking, measuring the length of darkness just as carefully as they once measured the length of light. These clocks adjust everything: the rate at which sugars are stored, the timing of growth, the readiness for the next day. Time in the canopy is always moving, not with haste, but with precision. And through it all the tree holds. Its tallest branches sway, but its base remains still. Its cells divide slowly in the dark. Its fibers repair, its tissues store. The canopy is not dormant, it is restorative. And this restoration hums through every layer of the upper forest, through the moss that grows on limbs, through the orchids that close their petals, through the birds that tuck their heads beneath wings. The echo here is not of sound returning, it is of energy held. Some trees send messages downward at night, signals from the leaves to the roots, updates on moisture lost, on temperature shifts, on threats sensed. The roots receive these cues and adjust their own rhythms. The conversation between sky and soil never stops. It simply quiets like a whisper passed hand to hand. Even in the darkest hours, the tree knows what the canopy feels. When lightning storms roll across the sky, the canopy becomes conductor. Charged air meets treetop, and in a flash, energy leaps into wood. Some trees are split, some scarred. Some carry the mark of a single strike for centuries, their trunks twisted by fire and memory. But others survive unchanged, their bark thick enough, their branches wide enough to endure. Lightning writes itself into the history of the canopy. Not every tree remembers in the same way, but all have listened. And in snow, the canopy transforms once more. Where once leaves danced, now white silence gathers. Snow rests on each limb, each fork, each cluster of evergreen needles. The weight bends the branches. Some snap, others hold. The creak of cold wood becomes the canopy's winter voice, a slow, deep groaning that rises in the stillness. Even then, even under ice, the tree does not stop listening. Its buds are already formed, sealed tight, waiting for light to return. Spring begins in the canopy before it arrives below. Buds swell where sun touches first. The highest leaves unfurl first, catching light that will never reach the forest floor. Blossoms open, and once again, bees return, filling the air with a soft buzz that feels like memory waking. New growth begins not from nowhere, but from knowledge stored in the structure of the tree, an echo of every season before it, now rising again in green. And so, year after year, the canopy listens. It listens to storm and silence, to sun and snow, to bird and breeze. It listens not with ears, but with openness. Every ring of wood laid down in a branch is a record of that listening, some thick and steady, some narrow and strained. Together they tell the story of each year, what came, what stayed, what left behind a mark. The echoes that move through this sky of leaves are not always sound. They are changes. They are impressions. They are shifts in posture, in shape, in energy. A broken branch becomes a new light path. A cleared space becomes home to vines. The canopy learns from what happens and passes that knowledge forward in form. That is its echo form born from experience. If you could drift, weightless, just beneath the canopy, you would feel it. The air is different here. It carries not just scent and heat and movement, but memory. Not of a single moment, but of hundreds layered gently on top of each other, like leaves fallen in time. The forest above the forest is a place of reflection, where echoes become form, and form becomes invitation. So when you next stand beneath a tree and look upward, remember this: those branches are not only growing, they are listening. They are gathering wind and sunlight, yes, but also every shift in the sky's voice. The forest upper limbs are tuned to the air, holding the silence between sounds, remembering what has passed. Each sway is a sentence. Each leaf is a listener. This is the canopy's gift, not just to reach upward, but to echo what the world gives it, and in doing so, to become a mirror of the sky. Stillness is not absence. It is presence, stretched long across moments too wide for hurry. In the quietest corners of the world there exists a music that does not move yet speaks. A symphony not of action but of being. The stones that lie beside a forest path, the lichen blooming slowly on a fence post, the bark of an old tree warming in the sun, all of them participate in this slow composition. They do not dance, but they resonate. They do not chase the wind, but they receive it. And in this stillness, they offer a kind of wisdom not found in motion. In the natural world, we often notice the flutter, the birds, the rippling grass, the flash of color in movement. But between these movements are anchors, things that stay, things that endure. Moss, for example, spreads inch by inch across logs and rocks, never rising high, never loud in its growth. Yet it thrives in shade, in silence, in moisture left behind by others. Its leaves are small, barely a whisper of green, but they capture water like memory, and in their closeness to the ground, they hold entire worlds. Even stone, which we often think of as lifeless, listens over centuries. A boulder in a meadow wears the rain like a soft coat. It holds warmth from the day long after the sun has gone. It becomes a place for insects to hide, for lizards to bask, for moss and fern to grow. It does not move, but it changes. Cracks form. Lichens bloom. Soil collects in its crevices. And slowly, over seasons, the stone becomes something new, not through action, but through welcome. Stillness is not the enemy of time. It is its companion. The tree stump left after a fallen trunk does not vanish. It softens. Fungus appears along its rim, bark peels away, roots fracture in slow spirals. Yet even in decay, the stump is not done contributing. It becomes a nurse log. It holds water. It offers shelter. It becomes a stage for rebirth. In stillness, it transforms not by doing but by allowing. The shells of long-gone creatures lie undisturbed beneath shallow streams. Their spiral forms catch bits of sand, their curves softened by water. They are not living, but they are alive with presence. A frog rests against them. Algae blooms in their grooves. The current hums through their hollow chambers. They are instruments played only by nature, flutes carved by time. They do not resist the flow. They shape it. Even the silence between tree rings carries sound. A tree grows outward, yes, adding layer upon layer, but in winter when growth pauses, a boundary is formed. That boundary is not absence. It is the marker of rest. It is the breath between chapters. And when you look at a cross-section of an old tree, you can read not just years, but pauses. Moments when the tree listened to the cold and waited. Each ring becomes part of a larger melody. Growth, pause, growth again. Leaves that fall are still. They settle on the forest floor where they no longer flutter, but their stillness invites transformation. Microbes gather, worms arrive. The veins of the leaf begin to soften and blur, giving their nutrients to the soil. They lie flat, but they participate. Their rest becomes renewal. Their stillness becomes sustenance. In forests, nothing is wasted, and stillness is never the end. The shells of cicadas left behind on tree trunks are quiet forms of echo. Once the insect lived inside, humming its loud call through summer air. But now the shell remains fragile, hollow, unmoving. And yet it tells the story of transformation. A form left open, a husk that marks where one life became another. It does not need to move to speak. It simply waits in golden silence, reminding those who pass what came before. In deserts, stillness is even more profound. The sand shifts, yes, but rocks do not. They lie beneath the sun, shaped by wind over centuries, slowly carved into ridges and hollows. In their shadows, life finds reprieve, snakes cooling themselves, beetles darting briefly before hiding again. The rocks do not chase shade, they become it. They do not make sound, they reflect it. And their stillness offers a sense of timelessness that movement cannot. Even the surface of still water carries sound. A pond in early morning reflects the trees and sky with perfect clarity, but it also listens. Every drop of dew that falls, every insect that touches its skin, sends ripples outward. Those ripples are notes, concentric echoes that move across the surface, slowly fading but never forgotten. The pond does not speak, but it sings in circles. Lichens, too, are masters of stillness. They grow where almost nothing else survives, on rocks in cold, on high tree trunks scorched by sun. They are slow beyond imagining, expanding a few millimeters each year, but they are among the oldest living things. They outlast seasons, storms, even generations of trees. Their symbiotic partnership between fungus and algae is a quiet collaboration. They ask little, give much, and change the surface they cling to without ever rising or rushing. Still, things are not without purpose. They are context. They are the frame for movement. A field without a standing stone is just grass. A hill without an ancient tree feels empty. These quiet presences are the memory keepers of the landscape. They mark place and passage. They become landmarks for birds and humans alike. A fallen log is not simply fallen, it becomes the bench, the path, the teacher. And in its stillness, it gathers moss and story. Even within us, stillness carries meaning. The beat of a heart includes a pause. Between inhale and exhale, there is a moment of suspension. The silence between words allows us to understand them. In music, rests are written deliberately. They give shape to the melody. In life, stillness gives shape to movement. And in the forest, stillness is the stage on which all other sounds perform. To observe the world of still things is to slow down enough to see what doesn't ask to be seen, to hear what doesn't make noise, to feel the steady presence of that which remains. Not static, but grounded. Not silent, but serene. These are the symphony's deepest notes, the ones you feel in your bones, long after the melody has passed. In the quiet symphony of the world, still things are not forgotten. They are the resonant hum beneath all motion. They are the deep breath the forest takes before wind arrives. They are the memory of time, held gently in form. And when we stand still beside them, we do not fall behind. We begin to understand.